Hey you guys, what's up and welcome back to Two Toe Tags Metal Reviews, and today you're getting our first impressions of the Heretics by Rotting Christ. Alright, Rotting Christ, dropping a new album. You know what, I'm gonna say this, I'm a fan of Rotting Christ, but I can't really say I'm the biggest fan. Not because I don't love their music, but only because I only got into them pretty much, I think when the Rituals came out, or Rituals, whatever it was called, which I think was 2016. But I listened to all their older stuff, but as far as like knowing which albums are good and bad and what songs and stuff like that, I'm kind of just a lost soul on that. I kind of just put Rotting Christ on shuffle and just let it go. That's how I like to do it. So this is gonna be the first time I ever picked up a Rotting Christ album on day one and listened to it from beginning to end. And I'm excited, man. This is probably my most anticipated release of this year so far.
Yeah, I mean, I liked Rituals a lot. That was a really good album. This is a band I've gotten into more recently, but I picked that album up and I really liked what I heard, so I'm super excited to check out this album. I believe there was a single or two that we checked out.
We did. They were lyric videos, so we didn't do reactions to them, but I liked what I heard. Typically, this band kind of has the same overall sound a lot of the times. You'll hear a lot of the same rhythmic patterns, a lot of the same melodies, a lot of the same effects and stuff like that, but I still like it. Yeah. So I know it's gonna be very familiar territory, at least by the singles we heard. I got a lot of familiar territory there. But without further ado, we're gonna go listen to it for the first time in its entirety, and we'll be back in just a moment to let you guys know our first impressions of the Heretics. Hey guys, we're back. We just finished listening to the Heretics in its entirety, and I gotta say that I really enjoyed this album, but it is not without its faults. However, these are faults that for some reason I'm willing to overlook. I don't know why. But you know what, the biggest fault on this album, this band in general, is that they're consistent to a fault. We've talked about this with other bands before, where they have such a solid sound, it's such a consistent sound, that it just makes everything sound the same. I don't know why, but I give this band a pass on that. It just, I don't know why. Like you put on any Rotting Christ album and they all basically have a very similar feel, very similar sound. They use the same riffing methods, the same beats, the same chanting, you know, ambient noises in the background, just very, very similar. This band is like, these guys are like the pizza of music. Like, I swear, like, I could eat pizza every day of my life and never get bored of it. It's like I could listen to Rotting Christ, and no matter how consistent and similar it sounds, I'll never get bored of it. I don't know.
So you're saying they served up a really good pizza this time?
They served up a really good pizza this time. I felt like they did everything they were supposed to do. You know, what did you think? What were your thoughts initially?
Well, from the perspective of someone who hasn't listened to this band as much as you, I thought this album was really fucking good. Like, straight up, from front to back, like, I'm enjoying it. Like, the only song that I didn't really like was track number 6, I believe, which the entire song is a 3-minute song. The entire song is a build-up, and then it just fades out. Yeah. So it's like, it's building up, you know, he's talking over like the band, like vamping on something, and it's like, oh, when? What's coming? What's coming?
Yeah, and it seriously feels like a build-up. It's 3 minutes and 42 seconds to be exact, and the first 3 minutes is like, and then
it just fucking fades out.
And then it just fades out.
It's like
20 seconds.
Like what was the point?
That's it.
It defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
Maybe it's supposed to be an interlude track. That would be an interesting take on an interlude track.
I think that's the idea, but is it well executed?
Yeah, not really.
Not really. Is it a skippable track? Probably.
Perhaps, yeah. Maybe it would be a good intro track, I don't know.
Do you have any other tracks that were scored kind of low?
You know what? Not really, because aside from that being, like, I gave that like a 2, because I thought there's no point. I gave the Voice of Universe a 5, just because I think that song, I can kind of connect with you that it kind of sounds like everything else.
Yeah,
I just felt like that song, it was very characteristic of the band, but compared to the other songs on the album, this song doesn't feel like it stands out as much. Other songs have hallmarks about them that make me recognize them, like just off a first listen. That one didn't really do that as much, but it still wasn't a bad song, which is why I gave it a 5. It's like, I can accept this, but I don't love it.
That's true. One of my lower rated songs was track number 5, which is Decay. Which is actually interesting. You pointed something out about that.
Yes, actually, that song, the melody they use is like a very well-known melody. I believe Man, it's been a while since I learned about it, but it was like a contrapuntal melody. I believe it's like a cantus firmus. You hear this melody a lot. Like,
without even knowing it.
Yeah, you don't even know it, but like
there's
like
movie scores and things like that.
Yeah, like this is actually a really popular thing. So when I saw, you know, the track title is DSRI, I'm thinking like, okay, like are they actually gonna do it? And they start doing the melody. I'm like, no way, they're actually straight up doing it. So I thought that was a really cool little thing that they called upon there.
It was cool, but as a track, as a whole track on its own, I felt it was one of the weaker tracks on the album. It's interesting that they did that, but it just didn't have the punch that a lot of the other tracks were.
Yeah, I like the speaking part on top of like the choral voices though. I like how that contrast there. I like how that sounded.
Yeah, and they do that stuff a lot too. And they also have a really good knack for filling voids, filling sound, making the song sound very full. Lots of ambience.
Yeah, there's lots
of stuff going on.
A lot of the space is filled.
Yeah, and one thing we talked about shortly after we listened to the album was that this is a band that on the surface might sound very similar in a lot of the tracks, but when you really start picking it apart, you'll start to notice little things here and there that are done probably post editing, you know, like different track layering and adding reverb effects and things like that. Like you mentioned something in the new Messiah, which is track number 9, which was really interesting.
In that track, during the verses, there are 2 verses that play in this track.
Yeah.
You hear the vocals, and then I kept hearing something behind it. It sounded like another vocal track, some kind of harmony, something.
It's very faint though.
But there was also guitar as well, so I kept thinking, is this the guitar tricking me? But no, what I think they did was they had a reverb of the track, which was a different tone.
Yeah.
But instead of having it go right afterwards, they put those 2 tracks right on top of each other.
Yeah, and like layered them.
And then the reverb goes slightly ahead.
They're layered but kind of offset, I think.
Yeah, like
so
barely.
You hear almost an overlap, but then a reverb at the same time. It was very unique and also very subtle. You gotta
you have to listen for it. It just,
I
don't know why, but like on the first listen, it just kind of came to me. I picked it out, don't know how, but it was something that really caught my ear, and I thought that was so cool. But it's such a like small thing that you'd probably have to listen for.
Yeah, and after we mentioned it, I'm like, I want to hear what you're talking about. So we replayed that track a few times, and it took like what, 4 times, and I'm like listening, I'm like, then oh, there it is, I hear it. And then we kind of talked about it, tried to figure out what was actually going on there. But that's the kind of stuff I love though, and those are the kind of things that I think make these tracks, they do sound different than each other, but you gotta figure it out.
Yeah,
it's not just on the surface, you gotta figure out what's different. It's like a puzzle,
puzzling pizza.
Highest rated tracks, number 3 and number 7 for me. Heaven and Hell and Fire, which is one of the singles they released. It's totally awesome song, super rad riffing, the energy's great. The guitar solo is phenomenal.
Wow,
I like my guitar solos.
Really?
But even better than that, track number 7, Fire God and Fear. Dude, this song is just the tremolo picking. It's got a halftime beat in comparison to the rest of the beats on the album, so that was a little different. And the guitar solo, again, I was like, ooh, boom!
Another really good solo.
Mind-blowing. So good.
So it's funny you say those were your highest rated tracks, because those were also my highest rated tracks.
Yeah.
But with good reason. I mean, you took the words out of my mouth. Like, the energy's there. Fire God and Fear, I loved how it had that halftime feel. And then when it got to the guitar solo, the double bass starts going, and then the energy just goes up and up and up. And I love how it just ramped up throughout the whole song.
It's so good.
Heaven and Hell and Fire, I really like. This is like a thing that's prominent throughout the whole album, and I think it's a thing that's very characteristic of this band, but how tribal the drums sound sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes the toms are going and it really sounds like deep and thick tribal drum sounds, and I love that, and that is present in this track, and it sounds amazing.
Yeah, speaking about thick drums, that's definitely something that you hear a lot, especially track 2 is, I even wrote a note about the thick 16th note double bass hits. Vetri Zlai. I suck at pronouncing words that aren't of English language, but yeah, that was a really cool song too. It had a female vocal in the chorus, if you noticed, speaking in a different language. I don't know what language, but there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on here.
Yeah. And
you know, I read through the comments of the videos for the singles that came out, and everybody's like, you know, this is typical Rotting Cries, so same old shit, blah blah blah. On the surface, yeah, dive a little deeper into it, I think you're gonna be in for a little surprise here and there.
Yeah, this is a really interesting album.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited because we're going to be listening to this album all week long, non-stop. I'm really excited to get into this one. So remember guys to like the video. If you like the comment, tell us what you think of this album. If you think it's unique or not, we'd like to hear what you're saying. Subscribe for more videos in the future. Remember, next week's going to be our final review of The Heretics by Rotting Christ. I'm TV Fish.
I'm Vile Self.
We'll see you guys later. Keep the horns up.